Pleasure it is to be with you this afternoon to have this panel session, which was otherwise postponed. Thank you for being so accommodating in my schedule. I was snowed in Washington and was not able to get here until today about 12. So thank you for accommodating us in that sense. I had the distinct pleasure of moderating this panel of distinguished individuals to discuss several topics of interest here in Latin America related to their new nuclear build program and their current nuclear program. Just quick background on me, because I'll be talking to you twice tomorrow. I'm the president and CEO of Excel Services Corporation, a nuclear engineering consulting firm which I started 31 years ago. God, that sounds horrible when I say it. And I was an engineering officer in a nuclear submarine for 9 years, and then I was a director with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, our regulatory authority in the United States, responsible for the licensing of those plants post 3 Mile Island from 1980 to 1985. Since I've started the company, I've done a number of things, lead a lot of industry initiatives and activities related to a number of technical issues and safety-related issues, and now I'm heading up all the policy activities, which we'll hear about tomorrow. What are we doing related to our federal government and state governments trying to change the dialogue about nuclear in the United States? So I'll look forward to talking to you about that tomorrow. But this afternoon's panel is really to discuss some of the issues. We're going to talk about a regulatory framework for new build program. What does that look like? Supply chain and logistics, roles for SMRs, what kinds of things should we expect to see, especially time frame for certification and deployment. And what are the key players in the nuclear power plant exports? Do we understand the landscape and do we understand the players? Now, I'm assuming that you know all the panelists, and that may be a mistake. So just a quick moment, would each one of you introduce yourselves quickly before we go?
Greg Jankowski, I'm the Director of Nuclear Installation Safety with the IAEA in Vienna.
Isidro de la Fuente, Vice President, New Unit Cell, GE Hitachi Nuclear.
My name is Carlos Leitner, Vice President of Latin America for Westinghouse Electric Company, based in Brazil.
Antonio Mira from Abidan, which is Association for Development of Nuclear Industry in Brazil.
Marcelo Gomes, I'm the head of the new build at Eletronuclear, Brazil.
Perfect. So what we're going to do is start with the topics, just bring them to bear, and then ask the panelists to say a few words about each one of them if they have something they wish to weigh in on, and then we'll move on from the topic to get through the four. We have a very finite time frame here, given the fact that this schedule is somewhat run over, and we have two more speakers after us who are both very interesting and fascinating. Had I not said that, I would have been beaten unmercifully. Is that not really? So we will start then with the developed regulatory framework for new build program. So I will just pass that to anyone who would like to discuss, to talk about how they see the new nuclear build planning, what they think are some of the important aspects and facets of a new nuclear build regulatory process. Gentlemen?
This was a part of my presentation. This is actually one of the slides, so I can talk about this for half an hour if you wish. I can simply say that nuclear new build planning requires a strong upfront government commitment. And what I also emphasized during my presentation, there is no turnkey project for that, because it is a national responsibility to put this program in place, and the government is responsible for establishing legal and governmental infrastructure required to support the regulatory authority. The regulatory authority has to be fully effective, independent, and transparent. In order to establish an effective regulatory control over license activities and facilities, and also in order to perform verification activities as required.
I would just add from a commercial practical perspective, just leave you with one quick message. Preparation, 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 and preparation. The model that we've seen in Japan, for example, the ABWR construction, times that have been achieved of 48 months from first concrete to commercial, or at least nuclear fuel load, is only due to the fact that they have finished the design of the plant, doing the engineering of the modules, building some of the modules, having them ready. So when the construction begins, everything goes like clockwork. So preparation is a key. You don't want to start building your nuclear power plant until you have everything under your belt.
An interesting point is this is an issue not only for newcomers, but also for countries that are already established as nuclear operators and are somehow restarting their program, like the case in Brazil. You need sometimes to stop, look back, and see what's on, what needs to be made better, what you need to have a closer look at. So there's always room for improvement.
But a good point, I think, Marcelo, is that when we look at the region, let's not forget we're not starting from zero, right? I mean, we have a tremendous amount of experience in the nuclear sector here in Latin America, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina. And so we need to just build upon that. There are many challenges ahead for sure, but let's not forget the tremendous amount of experience that's already in place.
And also research reactors as well.
Yeah, one thing type of experience Brazil has is that he was involved in two types of licensing. The first license when Westinghouse was selected for Angra 1 was the license following that time, as I had mentioned, the Atomic Energy Commission requirements and so on, later on NRC. When we developed the nuclear program for 8 units in Brazil with the German, then we followed the German requirements. And then today we have a big know-how mixing both of them. So really we have a tremendous capability today in licensing. The problem in licensing in Brazil is human resources, because it's getting old. But to have like Carlos mentioned, Latin America has a lot of experience also in license, like Argentina, Rio, Mexico, Brazil. So we don't need to start from this scratch. Really, I think we should use to help other country friends from Latin America to build up their license requirement, like our friend Fernando here from Chile.
And I would say, as we end this particular topic, that I have the pleasure of working with 27 different regulatory authorities throughout the globe. And I can tell you that not all regulatory authorities are created equal. And that means that there's a significant variation between some of them. Some of that's good, some of it's not so good. One of the questions we have up here, what are the strengths and weaknesses of an outcomes-based or prescriptive regulatory authority? There are some regulatory authorities that are only outcome-based, and some that are only prescriptive, and a number that are a combination thereof. I would ask you to consider what works best for you, because not one size fits all, and it's important to acknowledge and recognize all the strengths, all the weaknesses, all the experiences that have come from regulatory oversight and regulatory authorities being set up new, or those which were already in place for mature nuclear programs of one type or another, have enhanced and improved through operating experience and consideration of information from other regulatory authorities. So I think that there is a best model, if you will. I've seen a number of the things that work well. Some have to be varied between country to country. If you're talking about Fernando in Chile, I think there are some unique things that you would see, and we can talk about that offline. But I think it's important to acknowledge and recognize, especially as Latin America and the rest of the globe goes forward, that the nuclear community is watching, and we need us all to be safe. We need us all to efficiently, effectively, and safely operate our facilities, not only for the betterment of the entity in the country in which it's being operated, but especially for all of those across the globe that are so impacted when you unfortunately do not do so.
Hey, Don, if I may just have one final comment, and that is, there are different regulatory authorities, obviously, they're independent across the region, but there are some common themes that we see happening here. For instance, life extension. On the operating plants, we see a very common thread in all these markets, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, that are entering into a life extension process for their operating plants. These are opportunities for sharing lessons learned, sharing best practices, and working together. Obsolescence, that's another issue that we see in instrumentation and control systems. That's another thread that we can work across borders.
I couldn't agree more, and we're seeing it not only in digital upgrades, but also in cybersecurity applications, as you said, in license renewal or life extension, not only up to 60, but now up to 80, as we're doing it on our Surrey nuclear power plant in Virginia as a pilot, and the activities related to extended power upgrade, 24-month fuel cycle extension, and a number of other different initiatives which really enhance and improve the overall performance of the facility. We could spend all day discussing these, and I'm sure you don't want to, but The next one would talk about supply chain and logistics for new nuclear build. But thank you for that comment. I think it's real important. I think this is one of the issues for us to try to figure out what are some of the strategies to develop a local supply chain. How do we best leverage the fact that we not only have entities and organizations that are going to be coming in and supporting you, providing a technology after you've gone through your technology selection process, and then making a determination as to how best utilize your local activities. Gentlemen?
Well, this is a very tight balance to really look at, depending on your priorities. In some places, you're more interested in financing, and depending on the Exim Bank, the different countries that are going to be providing the financing, depending on the local content from that country is where you're going to get your best finance option. So for example, if you're going to be using the US Exim Bank, they'll like to see some of the production supply come from the United States. If you want to be more self-sufficient, you want some technology transfer for the future, then you want to build locally. So this is not a one-size-fits-all. We need to really understand what your priorities are. What GE Hitachi has to offer now as the global biggest provider of energy products and services, we can really leverage all that infrastructure we have around the world to help you, whichever way you want to go.
We develop a supply chain only if you had a market, if you had a program. Let me go back and compare with a country like everybody respects, Korea. When Brazil signed the agreement with Germany, we had in the program 8 units. We started more or less, the first one with the German company doing a lot of supply, a lot of things. At the end of the game, we will be when we finish the 8, we'll be almost self-sufficient. Unfortunately, this didn't happen because we stopped. We are discussing now the second one, which is under 3. But if you compare our program, it was more or less like the program that was established in Korea. You start with turnkey under 1, then the second one, the first of German plant, and the second plant in Brazil had more supply. In the end, you had a very, very strong supply chain. In that time, what we did, is interesting, what we did. We joined transfer of technology between German companies and Brazilian companies. And at that time, even the Brazilian government paid more or less almost 80% of the transfer of technology. So really, with that, we reach a capability to supply a lot of things, even for under 2 in the nuclear island. But however, since the program stopped, the program disappeared, continuous program disappeared, then a lot of companies that was heavily invested by the Brazilian government disappeared. So to increase the supply chain, you must to have a program if you're going to build 2, 3, or 4, or 8. But at least you should have a horizon, because if you don't have a horizon, the companies also are not going to invest in development of their capability.
That's right. I agree with you, Miller. And another, I think I'll just reinforce what I mentioned before on the regulatory side, on the supply chain side, what differentiates perhaps Latin America from other areas in the world. Again, we're not starting from scratch. We already have a lot of built-in capacity and capabilities in the supply chain area here in Latin America. Heavy equipment manufacturers in Brazil, here in Argentina, nuclear fuel manufacturing capability, enrichment, uranium mining, fuel cycle. So this, I think, is a great opportunity for the region to look ahead and build upon the investments that have already been made. I also agree with Isidro that says that it's not a one-size-fits-all answer, right? So it depends on the key drivers of what each country is interested in achieving. But the issue of localization, and as a result of localization, the economic benefits, right, to the region is phenomenal. And I think that's what brings a great value of expanding nuclear generation in this region. It's additional jobs, high tech coming into the area. So all this, I think, has a positive effect.
Yeah, the economical benefits are clear when you look at the economical aspects of localization. It's money that stays in the country that generates revenues, salaries, and everything. But that said, there must be, on one side, interest in the industry, the local industry to participate, because nuclear demands a lot of investments, a lot of capacity building and skills. And in order to have that interest, you have to have a plan, a long-term plan, not just build one plant now and then. You have to have some sequence of some continuation of the demand.
And I think that's one of the important things I've seen throughout the globe is the fact that many times we have the technology, we have the capability to bring things to bear, not only from those external providers, but also those local suppliers. What we have a difficult time getting sometimes what I'll call political will, which means that the country itself is committed, but not necessarily as committed as it needs to be. And therefore, as a result, you don't necessarily do all the things you commit to doing, so those suppliers that step up and spend a great deal of time, effort, and money to set themselves up to be able to be supportive cannot necessarily get on a return on investment if you've only built 1 or 2 reactors. And then when that story starts getting out, then the ability to get other suppliers to step up based on your, I promise, I commit, we're going to do it this time, is a little more difficult, as you can well imagine. So I think that's the important thing. When you're talking about supply chain, you have to have the long-term plan people are talking about and a commitment from your federal government that indeed you are going to do this. I can tell you right now from the United States that we have the technology, we just don't have the commitment. And I'll be talking about that tomorrow. But unfortunately, that's part of the issue we're experiencing, and I imagine other countries can experience it too. Thank you, gentlemen, for that. So the third question is really about what's the role of small modular reactors? Is there a time frame for certification and deployment? And ladies and gentlemen, if you wonder what I'm doing, these are just a few slides I threw down to try to drive the conversation and just try to show you information while these gentlemen were talking, just to sort of give you some sense of the kinds of things I thought they would be telling you. Got it.
Well, I'll get it started since General Electric is really not a big player in the SMR for the power generation sake. We believe that the SMR has a very prominent role, but in a niche market. What do I mean by that? I mean remote areas, disconnected from the grid. I mean military installations where they want to be independent for very obvious reasons. I mean areas like in the north of Canada where diesel power is the only way to go and it's very difficult to repower those plants. So those are niche. And the other niche that General Electric is looking at is fuel disposition, the final burnup of the transuraniums using the prison reactors, fast reactor technology. Outside of niche application, I think we realize what Westinghouse now is realizing, and also the Empower people, that it really requires a big commitment from the industry to really want to go small in a world where big is where the economies of scales are at. So right now, the perspective, again, just to finalize, is that the niche market, yes, but in power generation in a regular grid, no.
I would like first to make a comment on this table. It's missing one reactor. It's a Brazilian reactor that is going to be used in being developed for the submarine, 11 megawatts. So it's a small, but including small and medium reactor. I think in countries like Brazil, the way I see small and medium reactor, I think for the north of the country could be outstanding solution. Because what happened? We still have in some region that is totally disconnected from the national grid, small thermal power plants, burning oil, or you don't have gas, only burning oil because you don't have access and logistics for anything. So I think a small or medium-sized reactor, medium size goes up to 300 megawatts. We don't need that region 300 megawatts, but who knows, 50, 20, or 100 and so on. I think it's a solution. And really, as a sample, when you mention medium-sized reactor, Angra 1 is medium-sized reactor today. Was big in the past, today 600 megawatts, the medium-sized reactor. And I'm totally in favor, and I look forward to have this in being developed. I think for United States, I think is a focus on that, to have some leadership in nuclear power plant, right? And I think we have space for that.
It's a question of economics as well, right? So I agree that there's some specificity of applications for SMR technology. I think It will happen, but it's a question of economics. As you can see, the dollar per kilowatt, as you increase in size, is more economical, obviously. But I think we can...
The esteemed panelists, that there are several designs that are under consideration throughout the globe. And the ones that appear to be getting the most kind of traction are those which are light water based, or those which are not quite so quote unquote exotic. There are some more exotic ones which, while fascinating and interesting in their own right, unfortunately, as you stated, actually present some licensing dilemmas and challenges for any regulatory authority, because they're looking at techniques and considerations, things of that nature that have not yet been proven in any way, shape, or form, with the exception of some laws of physics, arguably. And I think what that does is it really creates some dilemma where you want to have all the considerations in a level playing field, but it's very difficult. One of the things we talked about here is that, what about powering mines? There are several countries I'm working in right now where I'm seeing that they want to have a small modular reactor in a distinct place. It is not connected to the grid whatsoever. Its sole function is to provide power for the entity that's actually utilizing it. So there are a number of these that are coming about, and they're looking at them in the 20 to 30 to 50 megawatt range too. So I think it's important to note that, as you stated, there are a number of countries that could not handle a large bill and would be more attractive to that. In the United States, we have a number of retiring coal and oil gas plants which are arguably right in the sweet spot of having an SMR replace them. It's just a matter of us getting past some of the political activities, and that matters sometimes, some of the activities or considerations, if you will, of our public. So our fourth and final topic is to talk about who are the key players in nuclear power plant exports, understanding the regulatory landscape, and that really means understanding the landscape as it applies to those particular key players as they present their technologies to respective countries. And so, gentlemen, I know you're like, what? Well, this is the question that I got, so Thomas, if I screw this up, it's your fault. But nonetheless, I want him to be under the bus with me. But I believe what we should probably be just talking about, who are the key nuclear power plant technology players that arguably Latin America should be looking at, and why? Gentlemen?
I guess I'll start. So what's interesting about Latin America, let me just back up a little bit. I mentioned that in the beginning, but it's a very diverse marketplace, right? So you have Mexico with BWR technology, you have Brazil with 2 different types of PWR technology, and you have Argentina here with heavy water. So that makes it very interesting from the start. And first and foremost, I think for all the vendors, Westinghouse and others, I think first and foremost our focus should be on the safe operation of the existing plants, right? So we need to continue to focus on the safe operation of existing plants. Looking ahead, look at what's happening around the world in different. There are over 78 plants under construction around the world. The vast majority of them are in the PWR category. Westinghouse is having the privilege of building 8 AP1000s, 4 in the United States, 4 in China. So we think we're well suited to have recent experience to deploy our technology here in the region. And I'll speak to that a little bit more tomorrow during my session.
Nuclear technology, nuclear industry is a very slow turning process of coming up with new products. We don't change very quickly, very often. All you have to do is go to any nuclear power plant. You still see some analog logic somewhere. You can still see relays. You can still see computers that are the size of a Coke machine. But there is changing. There is evolution. And I do really would like everybody to think ahead in the future. What is the next product line? What is the next evolution in nuclear technology? And that's what GE Hitachi has been investing, kind of only on its own. As you can see, most of the world is going PWR. But the PWR technology is well and is alive and is evolving. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more tomorrow about some of the exciting alternatives that are there for passive safety and passive operation. When you have a reactor, all it has is water coming in, steam coming out. Nothing moving, no pumps, no steam generators, no piping. So that's the kind of thing that you got to look going forward. What's out there that maybe is not right in front of you right now, but when I'm making a commitment for a 100-year plant, what do I want to look at for the next generation?
I think the list that you show as key players is complete. We had in the past, more or less 3 years ago, we did in Brazil, and I've been done developed. This was a workshop for 3 days to discuss possible technology for Brazil, evaluate each one, even include the small and medium-sized reactor. The list here that I have presented is complete. The only one that we did for Brazil, we discussed, but I think is not in the radar for Brazil, is the CANDU. The other one from China, from Russia, from the United States, from Korea, so on, all the PWRs and water reactors, this was discussed also, GE and other solutions and so on, was deeply evaluated in this workshop. The only one that is not was discarded because it's not Brazil never thought on having what this can do.
We are in touch with most, if not all, vendors of technology, and we have been discussing designs and everything. And the general opinion of experienced operators, technicians, engineers, all designs are basically good. The plants they stand in a very high level of technological design and supply. So if you look not specifically Brazilian situation, but the whole situation of Latin America, you should look at what comes together with the design. Maybe for some the business model will be interesting, the financing. For others is a long-term partnership. For others is a technology transfer. So each case there will be some way to evaluate, and because many countries they have offered other things besides the sale of the plant. So you have to evaluate your needs, what you want to get from the deal, what your long-term plans are, and act accordingly.
One short comment on CANDUs. I believe that once the uranium prices will go up, the interest for CANDUs is going to increase quite rapidly. They can complement the fuel cycle. They can burn almost anything, including smokes fuel. So whatever will be discharged from PWR after a little fabrication process can be put back into a CANDU reactor to complement the burnout of the uranium existing there. So from that standpoint, there would be a renewed interest in CANDUs, I am quite sure.
I had the pleasure, my company and I, participate in 12 countries' evaluations of technology to determine which kind they would use, including the United Arab Emirates. And I will tell you that while we are technology neutral, I agree with your comment, all the technologies are good, they're all safe, the variability between them is minimal, and most of the kinds of variations that come to bear are the kinds of activities occur, whether it's technology transfer, taking the fuel back, doing a build, own, operate, or whatever it may be, some kind of financing thing. There's a number of different variabilities that come to bear, but there are some specifics that unfortunately do preclude and take some technologies out of the running for particular applications. But the most important thing for you is that you need to make the choice based on what's best for your country. Wherever you're going to operate this, whatever this facility is going to do, wherever you're going to have it, that's what matters. And so I believe that you should, if I may ask you, to thank our presenters and our panelists for their excellent answers to all the questions. We have such a short period of time, Thomas. I don't know if you want to allow one or two questions before we go to Alina or not. That's entirely up to you, sir. Is there anybody who has a pressing question that they just have to ask, that they can't ask outside of this? Excellent. Very well. Gentlemen, thanks again.